Hello, my social media, family, friends, and acquaintances. Also, a huge shout out to veterans, service members, and soldiers out there in the virtual world. So, I'm still up here at Fort Custer, Michigan. It is April 2025. Working ahead a little bit here, I'm going to do my June virtual chapel service. We're going to focus on John chapter 20. This is the condensed version. So Mary Magdalene and the other women were the first to see the empty tomb. And this is significant because the writers of the New Testament, primarily the disciples, wrote the narrative of Jesus's crucifixion, death, and resurrection and appearances over 40 days unbiasedly and unapologetically and unashamedly, because in first century Palestine, women could not even go to court without an escort, and in some Jewish circles they were looked at as on the same level as livestock, unfortunately, based upon the fact that the disciples were the first to acknowledge that the women were the first to see the empty tomb and the risen Lord. Shows us that Christ really did resurrect from the dead. And this is one of many reasons why Jesus truly did fulfill the law and the prophets and had to rise from the dead, according to the Old Testament prophecies that prophesy that Jesus is going to come and die upon the cross, be buried, and raised on the third day. Later on in John chapter 20, Mary Magdalene is in distraught because she's wondering where someone had put her Lord. And then her Lord mysteriously appears to her in the garden. And later on in John chapter 20, the Lord appears to Thomas. And this is where we get the phrase doubting Thomas, because Thomas said he was not going to believe unless he could feel the nail marks of our Lord. And Jesus says, basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but followers of him are more blessed if they believe and have not seen him. And then John, the disciple, who was one of Jesus's three inner circle, part of Jesus's inner circle, ends chapter 20 by saying, "But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name." When we look at church tradition, Christian tradition in some circles tends to teach that Mary Magdalene was the woman caught in adultery, and Jesus told her to go sin no more, neither I nor they condemn you. But that's according to tradition. We do know that Jesus did drive out evil spirits in her life. I think it was in the Gospel of Luke, if I recall from memory. But the main point and primary point of application we can take from these incredible and extraordinary examples in John chapter 20, is that Mary was disappointed that her Lord had been crucified. She was the first to see the empty tomb and to see the risen Lord. The Lord appeared to her in her hour of need. And God appears and works in mysterious ways in our lives, in our hour of need, in our times of need, in our trials of need. He works supernaturally, sovereignly, providentially, works through people and circumstances, reveals himself to us in our hour of need, so that we also can truly say, "But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing we may have life in his name." The life in his name, I believe, is not focused on just the physical life, but on the spiritual. Because our hearts are truly restless until we truly find God. And may we find God in our hour of need, because God, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever, according to the author of Hebrews in Hebrews chapter 13, verse 8. And Jesus is knocking at the door on our hearts so he can meet our hour of need, because he says in Revelation chapter 3, verse 20, "Here I am, I stand at the door and knock. Anyone who hears my voice and lets me in, I will come in and eat with him and he with me." So until next time, take care and God bless.